Picture a country where the land itself refuses to stay still. Rivers swallow whole villages overnight. New islands rise from the water, and old ones vanish without a trace. And every single year, the monsoon arrives and quietly redraws the map. This is Bangladesh. But its story did not begin in 1971. To truly understand this place, we have to travel back thousands of years. Long before there was a flag, there was Bengal, a land of ancient kingdoms and powerful empires, of wealthy trading cities, brilliant poets, and fearless warriors, of textiles so fine the world could scarcely believe they were real. And to understand how all of it began, we have to follow the one force that shaped everything here: water. Three great rivers, the Ganges, the Brahmaputra, and the Meghna, pour into this land, carrying with them mountains of rich, life giving soil. The result is one of the most fertile river deltas on the entire planet. Here, rice became the foundation of life. Villages grew along the riverbanks, and boats became the highways that connected Bengal to the wider world. By the 8th century, a new power rose from the soil: the Pala Empire, one of the mightiest states in all of South Asia. The Palas were great patrons of learning, and under them, Bengal became a beacon of knowledge for the entire continent. Imagine stepping into the Samapura Mahavihara 1,000 years ago, a vast monastery of hundreds of rooms, monks moving quietly through sunlit courtyards, travelers arriving from across Asia just to study here. But in this land, the tide always turns. The Palas faded, the Sina dynasty rose in their place, and then, by the 13th century, a profound transformation began. Islamic rule arrived in Bengal, led by figures like Bakhtiar Khalji. Yet what followed was far more than conquest. Over the centuries, Bengal forged something entirely its own: a unique and distinct Muslim identity that belonged to no one else. By the 14th century, the Bengal Sultanate stood as a major independent power, and the region was growing extraordinarily wealthy. Its textile industry was famous across the known world. The finest of all was Dhaka muslin, a fabric so impossibly delicate that people said it was almost weightless. Woven air. Threads finer than a whisper. Bengal had become a beating heart of the great Indian Ocean trade. Then came the Mughals. Under the Emperor Akbar, Bengal became the richest province in the entire empire. Dhaka exploded into a roaring metropolis, its markets overflowing, its rivers thick with traffic and trade. Grand structures like the Lalbagh Fort still stand today, silent witnesses to that golden age of wealth and ambition. But such staggering wealth attracts more than empires. Out on the horizon, new sails appeared. European merchants, drawn by the riches of Bengal. First came the Portuguese, then the Dutch, then the French, and finally, arriving with quiet ambition, came the British. By the 18th century, the Mughal Empire was crumbling, and Bengal was ruled by its own Nawabs. Among them was a proud young leader named Siraj ad-Daulah. Then came the year 1757 and the Battle of Plassey. But the British held a secret weapon that day: not gunpowder, but betrayal from within. They won, and that single, quiet victory would change absolutely everything. The East India Company seized control, and slowly, the immense wealth of Bengal began to drain away into a distant colonial economy. Taxes soared. Traditional industries, built over centuries, crumbled into dust. And then came the ultimate tragedy: the Great Famine of 1770, in which millions of people lost their lives. And yet, even beneath a century of colonial rule, something new was quietly stirring. Bengalis began to question the system that bound them. The 19th century brought a great intellectual awakening, the Bengal Renaissance. New schools opened their doors. Printing presses spread bold new ideas across the land. And the world was introduced to towering thinkers like the poet Rabindranath Tagore. But political tension was building toward a breaking point. In 1905, the British made a fateful decision. They divided Bengal in two. The response was immediate. Protests erupted in the streets. Boycotts spread like wildfire across the province. And in 1906, in the city of Dhaka, the All India Muslim League was born. After the Second World War, the sun finally set on the British Empire in South Asia. Independence was coming at last, but it came at a heavy and painful cost. In 1947, the land was divided once again. India was created. Pakistan was created. and Bengal itself was torn in two. Eastern Bengal became a new territory, East Pakistan. But from the very start, the distance was far greater than geography alone. Power was concentrated 1,000 miles away in the west. And the first great clash came over the deepest thing of all language. The government demanded that everyone speak Urdu, but the people of the east spoke Bangla. And for them, this was not politics. This was a fight for their very soul. February 21st, 1952, Dhaka. Students marched through the streets in defense of their language. The government banned the gathering, but the protesters moved forward anyway. And then the police opened fire. Students fell. The deaths shocked the entire nation. But instead of ending the movement, the terrible day made it unstoppable. By the 1960s, the call for autonomy grew louder and louder, and one man became the face of the struggle, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. He put forward his six-point movement, a bold demand for self-rule. Then came the election of 1970. The Awami League won a sweeping, overwhelming victory, more than enough to form the government. But that power was never handed over. On the 7th of March, 1971, Mujib stood before an ocean of people in Dhaka. Hundreds of thousands held their breath as he spoke. The entire country was balanced on the edge of a knife. Then came the night of the 25th of March. The Pakistan army launched a massive and brutal military crackdown. Dhaka was attacked. The university itself was targeted. And so the people rose. They became the Mukti Bahi, the freedom fighters. For 9 long months, war consumed the land. Millions were displaced from their homes. 10 million people fled across the border, seeking safety. On the 16th of December, 1971, the Pakistani forces surrendered. The flag of Bangladesh rose into the sky, and the streets of Dhaka erupted in pure, overwhelming joy. After thousands of years of changing rulers and shifting borders, at long last, a new nation was born, Bangladesh. But independence was only the beginning of the story. The war had left the infrastructure in ruins and millions of people displaced. Sheikh Mujibur Rahman returned in 1972 to rebuild a shattered nation. Yet the years that followed were painfully difficult, marked by famine and by the tragic assassination of Mujib and his family in 1975. For decades, the country wrestled with political instability and the shadow of military rule. But while the politics remained turbulent, the people were quietly transforming their nation. Bangladesh invested in education. Women entered the workforce in record numbers. The garment industry exploded, clothing the entire world. Dhaka grew into one of the fastest growing cities on the planet. Challenges still remain: political conflict, deep inequality, and the looming threat of a rising sea in a low-lying delta. But if this long history teaches us anything, it is the meaning of resilience. Because the story of Bangladesh was never truly about kings or presidents. It is the story of ordinary people. The farmer planting rice along a moving river. The student who marched for a single word. The family who simply survived. And the fighter who won their freedom. For thousands of years, Bengal changed hands again and again. But its culture, its language, its identity never broke. In 1971, that identity became a nation. A country born from rivers, shaped by struggle, and built by its people. Its history is thousands of years old. But the story is not finished. Because Bangladesh is still writing its future.